So you are interested in potentially buying a Mark 6 GLI GTI car from Volkswagen. I've owned one for about 1.5 years now, dealt with the problems, the cons, the pros, and let me tell you about my experience, see if you're still interested afterwards. Okay, why don't I talk about the pros for this car for a little bit. Overall, this is a great little car to have. It's quite small, it'll fit really anywhere, and it's pretty nimble as well. Obviously, if you get the GTI, the slightly shorter version of this car, it's going to handle slightly better. But overall, this car handles really nicely. It feels very quick with the DSG transmission and the TSI engine. 200 horsepower really feels like 200 or more horsepower. Honestly, the torque comes on so quickly, and the power is just very smooth all the way to red line. That's just a very enjoyable car to drive overall, especially on the back roads. And once you put it into sport mode, it really transforms the car. I believe all it does is change the throttle mapping and the transmission shift timing and stuff like that, but it really transforms the car. It feels incredibly tight, feels very enjoyable on the back roads. Let's move on to preventative maintenance. When I got the car, for the most part, it was working. There were no issues with it. I had the place I bought it from service the car, do the transmission service, which is extremely important. Replace a bearing. It's one of the things that needed to be replaced. And basically the car was set to go at that point. Since then, there's been a couple different things I've done spark plugs, coil packs, of course. Those always have to be done on these cars for some reason. I'm not sure why, but if you're ever having misfire or something, those are probably the reason why. And I would occasionally have a misfire under high load. The car would occasionally misfire, and once I took care of those coil packs and spark plugs, that issue has not happened for me since then. And then the other major issue that I took care of before it became an issue was timing chain service. This is, if you know anything about this car, that is one of the most important service items for this car, and you're going to want to keep an eye on that. I had taken the car apart a little bit and checked, make sure that it had the new tensioner, and I knew that it had the new tensioner. I visually had checked it, but I knew that either way there was still going to be some timing chain stretch taking place. And I got an OBD11 reader and was able to see that it was showing signs of stretching. I believe it was at -6, -7, around there degrees, and that is definitely at the point where you need to get it addressed. Even though it wasn't as much of a hurry, because the tensioner itself was the updated one, but that was taking care of this spring. I bought a kit for it and had a local VW Audi tech do it in his garage for me. Got a better price that way, but that gives huge peace of mind having that done. Okay, let's move on to maintenance items that I've had to do a little bit more unexpectedly, problems that have come up. And the first one there was a little bit of oil leaking, seepage when I bought the car. I took care of that with a upper timing gasket. That was a pretty simple job that I was able to do in my garage, no problem. And more recently, I had issues with both control arms. Both of the main bushings on the control arms were completely shot. When I would brake hard on the highway, I would get steering wheel vibration going back and forth, and that's a really good sign that you probably need to check on your control arms, make sure that those bushings are all set, especially if it's pulling more one way or the other. Just really feels like the car wants to rip the steering wheel out of your hand. So that's an extremely important one you want to get checked out. And then while I was having the car inspected, funny enough, the coolant hose exploded. in the back of the engine, one that goes, I believe, from the radiator where it connects in the on the firewall behind the engine. I had one of those explode, throw coolant all over the engine. Looked like the thing was on fire, but obviously it was just steam. For the most part, everything was okay. Once that was taken care of, there's just a simple hose that needed to be replaced. And then there was also the e-brake lines were stretched. Those had to be replaced as well. Stuff like that in the control arms is just stuff that happens to a car when it's at 130,000 miles. So it's a bit annoying, but not really unexpected. Definitely not anyone's fault or Volkswagen's fault or this car's fault. It's just kind of what happens. Now let me talk about the last major issue that I've had with this car would be the transmission. The DSG transmission is what's equipped in this car, and there are some really big pros for it. It's incredibly fast shifting. It's incredibly smooth. It can hold a lot of power if you want to tune it as well. There's definitely some advantages. In fact, if you want to tune the car at all, you should probably just have the DSG transmission. But there's also some very annoying things about it. It's just not smooth in traffic whatsoever. It's very frustrating to deal with, especially if you're in traffic a lot, as I am. Honestly, I would rather have a manual transmission in traffic versus this DSG, where it's just hard to control and know exactly what it's going to do. And the overall just stop and go, anytime you're stopping and going with it, it is just not very enjoyable, and quite frankly, it stresses me out a little bit. If I were to ever buy another Volkswagen product or this specific Mark 6 generation car, I would definitely go with the manual transmission now that I know what the DSG is like. That obviously has its own cons, but for me, I would rather be in control of that clutch instead of having the computer control it. So for me, I would still definitely recommend these cars at this age. In 2023 and going forward, I think that they're still very comfortable. They look great, and they still have a lot of the modern conveniences that you would want for a enjoyable commuter daily car. I think that though they are going to have probably more maintenance costs than you would for a Honda or a Toyota, I think that it's still going to be an overall pretty good experience as long as you're prepared for those costs and just know that there are things that you have to take care of on these cars, and if you take care of them, it's probably going to treat you really well. Thanks for watching, guys. If there was something that you wanted me to cover or more details on, just comment it and I will try to get it back to you if I know the answer, if I know what you're looking for. Thanks for watching.